Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Gonna do this one solo once again. Should be back to normal on Wednesday. Let's take a look at how we did this weekend before getting into next week's matchups. In the AL, New York took 2 of 3 from Tampa. Cleveland swept Oakland. Detroit took 2 of 3 from Minnesota. And Baltimore took 2 of 3 from Kansas City. In the NL, the Mets took 2 of 3 in LA. San Francisco and Arizona split. Chicago split with Miami. And then Milwaukee swept the Cardinals. We had 7 interleague matchups. The first one we have is Cincinnati sweeping the Angels, Boston sweeping Pittsburgh, Philly sweeping the White Sox, Washington taking 2 of 3 from Houston, Atlanta took 2 of 3 from Texas, Toronto took 2 of 3 from San Diego, and Seattle took 2 of 3 from Colorado. Not the greatest week for predictions. Me and Blake both went 7-6-2. My season record is 51-43-9, while Blake's is 65-31-7. Now let's get into this next week's matchups and see if we can do a little bit better. Starting off in the American League, we have the Oakland A's taking on the New York Yankees in New York. It's going to be a 4-game series. JP Sears versus Carlos Rodon, Paul Blackburn versus Marcus Stroman, Joe Boyle versus Clark Schmidt, and Alex Wood versus Nestor Cortez. I'm going to go ahead and take the Yankees on this one. They're coming off of 2 of 3 against Tampa, while the A's just got swept by Cleveland. Obviously, the Yankees have a lot more firepower these days, and they're at home. So I'm going to take the Yankees on this one. Next up, we have the Detroit Tigers heading into Tampa Bay to play the Rays. It'll be Tariq Skubal versus Zach Littell, Kenta Maeda versus Ryan Pepio, and Jack Flaherty versus Tyler Alexander. I think this series will come down to who gets the timely hits, as both these offenses are kind of lackluster. I do like Tampa Bay's starting pitching matchups a little bit better than Detroit's, so I'm going to go ahead and take the Rays at home. Next up, we have the Chicago White Sox heading into Minnesota to play the Twins. It'll be to be determined versus Chris Paddock, Eric Fetty versus Pablo Lopez, Garrett Crochet versus Joe Ryan, and Mike Soroka versus Bailey Ober. I'm going to go ahead and take the Twins on this one. They haven't been playing that well to start the season, but they are playing the White Sox, who are absolutely awful. They just got swept from Philly, so yeah, taking the Twins on this one. Next up, we have the Blue Jays taking on the Royals in Kansas City. It'll be Yusei Kikuchi versus Brady Singer, Kevin Gausman versus Michael Wacha, Yariel Rodriguez versus Alec Marsh, and Jose Barrios versus Cole Ragans. I'm going to go ahead and take the Royals at home on this one. It is a 4-game set, so realistically I do think they're going to split, but it should be a pretty competitive matchup. I do like Kansas City's offense a little bit better, but the Jays are hot right now, winning back-to-back series. Next up, we have the O's heading into Anaheim to take on the Angels. It'll be Albert Suarez versus Reed Detmers, Grayson Rodriguez versus Griffin Canning, and Dean Kramer versus Tyler Anderson. Though the Angels do miss Corbin Burns in this series, they have not been swinging it well. I'm going to go ahead and take Baltimore to go into Anaheim and beat the Angels, possibly even sweep. Next up, we have the Boston Red Sox heading into Cleveland to take on the Guardians. It'll be Tanner Houck versus To Be Determined versus Carlos Carrasco, and Brian Bayo versus Tristan McKenzie. This is the second time these two teams are playing each other. I'm going to go ahead and take the Guards again to win round 2. Both of these teams are coming off sweeps. The Red Sox swept Pittsburgh, Cleveland swept the A's. Ultimately, the Red Sox are just too banged up for me to take them, and I do like Cleveland's pitching a little bit better. So I'm going to go ahead and go with the Guards on this one. Rounding out the American League, we have an AL West matchup between the Seattle Mariners and the Texas Rangers. It'll be George Kirby versus John Gray, Logan Gilbert versus Dane Dunning, and Bryce Miller versus Andrew Heaney. I do like the pitching matchups a lot better for the Mariners in this one, but the Rangers have been swinging it and looked impressive on Sunday Night Baseball against the Braves. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Rangers at home. Whoever wins this series will take over first place, though it is April. But the AL West has been struggling, and these are big games even this early in the season. Next up, we have the Milwaukee Brewers heading into Pittsburgh to take on the Pirates. It'll be Joe Ross versus Jared Jones, Wade Miley versus Bailey Falter, Freddie Peralta versus To Be Determined, and To Be Determined versus Mitch Keller. Both of these teams were on 2 completely different paths last week. The Pirates have lost 6 in a row. Milwaukee's won 4 in a row. I'm going to go ahead and take the Brewers on this one. It is a 4-game set. Could see a split, but I feel very confident in the Brewers winning 3 of 4 at least against this struggling Pittsburgh Pirates team. Next up, we have the Phillies heading into Cincinnati to take on the Reds. It'll be Ranger Suarez versus Hunter Green, Christopher Sanchez versus Andrew Abbott, Spencer Turnbull versus Nick Lodolo, and Zach Wheeler versus Graham Ashcraft. I'm going to go ahead and go with the Phillies on this one. They did just sweep the White Sox, and their offense seems to be hot. While the Reds did just sweep the Angels as well, their bats haven't been that hot. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Phillies in Great American Ballpark. I think they're going to swing it. Next up, we have the Miami Marlins heading into Atlanta to take on the Braves. It'll be Ryan Weathers versus Reynaldo Lopez, Trevor Rogers versus Max Fried, and AJ Puck versus Chris Sale. Obviously, I'm going to go with the Braves on this one. They're the hottest team in baseball right now. It look like they're probably going to go to the World Series this year. Yes, I know it's April, but Miami has been playing better ball. They did just split with the Cubs, but obviously it's been a train wreck this far. So yeah, going to take the Braves. No surprises there. Next up, we have the Arizona Diamondbacks heading into St. Louis to take on the Cardinals. It'll be Brandon Pfaadt versus Lance Lynn, to be determined versus Steven Matz, and Jordan Montgomery versus Kyle Gibson. I'm going to go ahead and go with the D-backs on this one. I said it last week as well. The Cardinals just look bled to me. They're coming off of just being swept by Milwaukee. So, yeah, they're not playing very good baseball right now. I'm going to go ahead and go with the D-backs. Next up, we have the San Diego Padres heading into Denver to take on the Rockies. It'll be Dylan Cease versus Austin Gomber, Michael King versus Ryan Feltner, Matt Waldron versus to be determined, and to be determined versus Dakota Hudson. Obviously, the Padres' pitching matchups are a lot better than the Rockies, and overall, as an offense, they're better than the Rockies. But the Rockies do fare pretty well at home usually. I wouldn't be surprised if they split, but I am going to take the Padres. Next up, we have the New York Mets heading into San Francisco to take on the Giants. It'll be Jose Quintana versus Keaton Winn, Luis Severino versus Logan Webb, and Sean Manaea versus Blake Snell. I'm going to go ahead and take the Mets on this one. I do like the Giants' pitching matchups better on paper, but Blake Snell hasn't gotten it going. He's 0-3 with 11.57 ERA. Obviously didn't have a spring training, and that's been hurting him. So I'm going to go with the Mets. They've been playing well, so I think they're going to take this one. The last National League matchup we have is the Dodgers taking on the Nats in DC. It'll be James Paxton versus Patrick Corbin, Ryan Yarbrough versus Jake Irvin, and Yoshinobu Yamamoto versus Mackenzie Gore. The Dodgers have lost 4 straight series, but did win 10-0 on Sunday against the Mets. I think they're going to take round 2 against the Nats, even though they lost to them last weekend. Rounding out the week is our lone interleague matchup between the Houston Astros and the Chicago Cubs. It'll be Hunter Brown versus Jordan Wicks, JP France versus Jameson Taillon, and Justin Verlander versus Javier Assad. I'm going to go with the Cubs on this one. They did just split with Miami, but they have been playing pretty well. I've wasted too many picks on Houston up to this point. I thought they were going to get it going against the Nats, and it just didn't happen. So I'm going to stick with the Cubs. That's going to do it for this one. Going over my picks one more time. I have New York, Tampa, Minnesota, Kansas City, Baltimore, Cleveland, Texas, Milwaukee, Philly, Atlanta, Arizona, San Diego, New York, LA, and Chicago. Blake has the Yankees, Detroit, Minnesota, Toronto, LA, Cleveland, Seattle, Pittsburgh, Philly, Atlanta, Arizona, San Diego, New York, LA, and Houston. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. As always, appreciate everyone for listening. Hopefully we do better on our predictions this week. And we'll see you on the next one. Later.